Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Jeff Jenkins and Eric Clayman here for another episode of our Facebook Live series. We've had a couple of, I guess we had one recently that we didn't do, right?
Jeff, we did hear from hundreds and hundreds of people
We did.
who called our office and said, "Where were you last week?" But we took a little snow day, didn't we?
Yeah.
But we're back.
Right. Okay, for today's program, we wanted to go over these deadlines that keep changing for things like can you be evicted yet? What about sheriff sales? Are they happening? Can the mortgage companies do foreclosures? What about utility shutoffs? And we also wanted to get into stimulus dollars, but really that's from things that are brewing in the Washington, D.C. swamp. Can I say that? That haven't been passed yet, but they expect the president and Congress trying to get something passed by the middle of March. And I would think that because they're all Democrats, the president, the House, and the Senate, that whatever president proposed, it would be pretty close to that, what we'd end up with. I mean, some things he's going to have trouble with, but other things will remain pretty much unchanged. And I suppose, like these stimulus amounts of money that we're going to talk about, I'd be surprised if they didn't end up being that amount. So, do you want to say anything?
I did. Hi, everybody. Right. It's really interesting that when Jeff and I started this, or Jeff started this, we wouldn't have guessed that 11 or 12 months later, 11 months at this point, we're still talking about financial stimulus as a result of COVID. But we're all wearing our masks, washing our hands, and standing in lines for vaccines. So I imagine this Facebook Live will only last another 2 or 3 years, Jeff.
Can't be. All right, why don't we start off with evictions? How's that sound?
That sounds great. We do want to today, Jeff, and we talked about this in prepping for today. We're going to talk about it from both sides.
Yeah, there are two sides to many of these things, and the government's focused on one side, not the other necessarily, but because they're focused on one side and doing something for one side, they're causing problems for the other side. As far as evictions are concerned, in New Jersey, and that's what we're talking about, New Jersey, our governor has repeatedly renewed these orders, like every 30 days, that the virus is still a problem. We still have an emergent situation because of the pandemic. And he needs to do that because if he doesn't, his orders can only last for 30 days and then they'll run out. But he's continually said that there would be no evictions, and every time he does another order, it's in there again. So right now, and I'll talk a little bit about, or Eric and I will, the federal dates for when evictions can happen. But you really don't need to worry in New Jersey about the federal stuff because the state eviction moratorium is more pervasive.
It's broader. It covers each tenant.
Exactly. It covers everything. Number one. Number two, we usually have a date that's farther out than what the federal government has. Right. But so right now in New Jersey, based on the governor's most recent order, we have until the 19th of April for our eviction moratorium. So if he doesn't do anything else in New Jersey, the eviction moratorium would end on the 19th of April. Now, this bill that is being worked on in Congress that they call the American Rescue Plan. That sounds very patriotic, doesn't it?
It really does.
It's possible that the president he wants to do something about evictions, first of all. And he may say that there can't be any until August or even September. But those are the kinds of dates that are being thrown around in this legislation that's brewing from the federal government anyway.
Jeff, just to fine tune on New Jersey, it's where Jeff got to April 19th is that the emergency has been extended through February 19th, and then we add 60 days, right? Because we've talked about this on other Facebook episodes.
Yeah.
So what you want to do is pay attention to Governor Murphy on February 17th, February 18th, or February 19th. And one of those 3 days, I can assure you that he will say that we are still in an emergency.
Sure.
So Jeff's date is exactly right. It's 60 days from February 19th. But like that, it's soon going to be 60 days from April 30th or something like, or April 19th or something like that. And that's just, we were naive when we started this at Facebook. And if you listen to our first few episodes in which not that everyone we speak about eviction, but when we did, we assumed that the governor's emergency order will end sometime.
Right.
I'm no longer assuming that.
Well, I think there's some end to it, but I don't know if it's in sight yet.
Okay.
Anyway, just some other things about evictions, and we've talked about these before. In New Jersey, landlords can file summary dispossess actions. That's what we call them. And an eviction action equals a summary dispossess action. They can file those all they want. In fact, there were 29,000 of them in the mill back in April.
Post-pandemic.
Yes. And Lord knows how many there are right now. But there, according to the Supreme Court of New Jersey, not the governor, there can't be any landlord-tenant trials. So if you don't have a landlord-tenant trial, you wouldn't have a judgment for possession signed by a state court judge or a writ of eviction signed by a state court judge. So the process is stopped several different ways. The governor's saying there can't be any evictions. The Supreme Court's saying there can't be any landlord-tenant trials.
Let's talk about that. So if there was a judgment for eviction before the emergency, that will get restarted once the emergency is over, presumably. But in New Jersey, there is no such thing as a self-help eviction. A landlord can never throw you out of your dwelling. And if
for residential
right, for your home. And if a landlord ever does, you should call the police and the police will stop them. A landlord in New Jersey cannot evict a tenant. Only a court officer can. And between the governor and the Supreme Court, that's not happening.
Right. Some other things about evictions. When the Supreme Court said that there couldn't be any landlord-tenant trials, they did say that they wanted to have arbitration in each landlord-tenant case that was filed. And so there have been arbitration things going on where an arbitrator sits down with the landlord or the landlord's attorney and the tenant, and they try to work something out, a payment plan to pay the rent arrears back.
They've been really effective, haven't they? No,
not really.
Good intentions.
Right. But, and of course, it's important to remember that while there's no evictions right now, you still owe your rent.
Absolutely.
So, and we'll talk a little bit more about that, but at some point, that rent's going to come due, and if you don't pay it, you're going to get evicted.
That brings up a point. Pardon me for interrupting. Sure. That brings up a point. If you like where you live and you rent there, we're talking about from the tenant's perspective, and you've had a shot to your income, but things are better now. Perhaps even you're on unemployment, but you now are receiving it plus the federal government subsidy, and you feel like, hey, if I could just get rid of my credit card debt, I could work on a payment plan with my landlord and stay there. Then even though you're not being evicted, I would offer to you that this would be a great time to file a Chapter 13 bankruptcy case.
Well,
because you could get a plan going to repay your rent because you know you're going to have to, at the same time getting rid of your credit card debt.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. You don't have to wait until the day before well, it don't be too late. Somebody comes to evict you to do something. You could always take action now, and you could do that not only in a landlord-tenant situation, but also in a mortgage situation. If you're behind with your mortgage or you're way behind with your utilities, these arrears are going to come due at some point, and the landlord, the mortgage lender, utility company might do something for you by way of a repayment plan, but we can do that with a bankruptcy. And like Eric said, it's not just about payment plan for whatever you're behind. We can also probably get rid of a lot of other debt that you've got. And that would make things a lot easier for you on a month-to-month basis. You wouldn't have to be paying ridiculous amounts of money for high interest credit cards or something.
When we first speak to a client, Jeff, what we like to do is ask them, okay, approximately how much money does the family bring home in a month? Okay, now if we could get rid of or reorganize your medical bills, your credit cards, your payday loans, payments even on to New Jersey for unpaid driving surcharges, maybe a car repossession fee that you're still paying for, IRS debt, New Jersey tax debt, unemployment overpayment, and all sorts of things like that. If we could set those aside, would things be easier for you? And they ask, we can really do that. And the answer is yes. Mm-hmm. And that's really, people call up crying and they call and they hang up, hopefully smiling. Sometimes we do Zoom calls so we can even see they're smiling at the end. But it really does help people who are behind with their bills, and not waiting till the end or not waiting till being evicted is important, because every day that you're sitting there with the possibility of being evicted in the future, or the fact that you're falling behind with your rent each month, adds an unnecessary anxiety to your life. And that anxiety can creep in to other aspects, whether how you are with your spouse, how you are with your kids, and how you are at work. So relieve your anxiety. Give us a call.
Absolutely. Back to the landlord situation. Again, in the American Rescue Plan, there is a provision for giving states money for rent relief. And so that might be something that happens. There may be money that's available for tenants, but there'll be a number of rules attached to that. There are income rules. You can't exceed a certain amount of income. And there's other things. You'd have to fill out a form. You'd have to have your landlord sign it, send it in. The landlord might be the one that gets the money, but it's possible that some money could be available to help tenants with that stimulus bill.
$591 million for New Jersey, right?
Yeah. Yep. And they set aside $25 billion, although I just saw $30 billion the other day, but it was always $25 billion in the bill for rent relief. And then, just based on the number of people in the state, the number of people having problems, they would allocate a portion of that $25 billion for a state.
So right now, New Jersey, it's estimated to be $591 million. The problem, of course, is the implementation. And Jeff mentioned, is it going to go to the landlord? Probably, but the landlord and the tenant have to work together. And then there's income limits for the tenant. If the tenant makes too much money, the landlord's not getting that money. And then the other issue is, who is going to implement it? It won't be federal, it'll be each state. Well, is the state going to implement it? Is the county? Or what about big cities like Atlantic City that have so many tenants that are behind? Yeah. Who's going to do this? And once it's being done, can evictions occur? It's very complicated. And then those people who are on subsidized housing, Section 8 housing, may not be eligible at all because they already received federal funds. So it's very, very confusing. Talk to us if you have questions about if you're behind with your rent. In fact, Jeff, let's just spend a moment. Suppose, when we think of landlords, we think of this guy from like The Producers or something with a big cigar, and he owns 40 or 50 high rises. But in fact, that's not the type landlord that we speak to, is it?
No. There's some that might just have one rental building or two or something like that. And while the government keeps looking at doing things to help the tenants, what are they doing to help the landlords? If there is money for tenants that's going to end up going to the landlords are going to be helped as well. But we don't know that or how it's going to work or anything else.
And in the meantime, there's no relief for mortgage payments. So if someone owns a triplex or a duplex and they've been receiving rent from their neighbors for the last 21 years, but still have 9 more years left on the mortgage, what the heck's happening to that landlord, to that homeowner?
Exactly. And if landlords, if you're in a situation like that, or it's a small business. We have small business owners that have a lot of trouble. All kinds of industries like the restaurant industry, the hospitality industry, the airlines, the performing arts, people that just haven't been able to do much of anything. If your financial problems have gotten serious, come talk to us. We're happy to talk to you and tell you what we think. It may be that a bankruptcy is appropriate. It may be that it's not, but at least we could talk to you about that and give you some good pointers. And maybe even if you didn't decide to do a bankruptcy, you'd walk out of the office or walk away from the Zoom feeling better, feeling that you've done something to get a little control over your life rather than just let all this stuff happen. So that's probably it about evictions. As far as sheriff sales, that's real short. The governor's order is still in effect that there can't be any sheriff sales unless it's a commercial property or an abandoned property. But just a normal residential situation, there's no sheriff sales. And he'll decide when they're going to happen again.
And now, what is the exception? People in New Jersey are still losing their properties, though, and we're able to stop the loss of property on tax sales.
Yeah.
And we're seeing those. Jeff, why don't you explain a little bit what a tax sale is in New Jersey?
Well,
because it's really not a sale, is it?
Not really. But yeah, there are some things that aren't covered by these moratoriums that we're discussing. And for residential real estate, a property tax sale is something that's not covered right now. So if you don't pay your property taxes or water or sewer, if the water or sewer is owed to a municipality, every municipality each year will have like a day where they have tax sales for the money that they haven't received in the last year or so.
Right.
And people can come in and pay the municipality the money that's owed for a particular house, family, whatever. And in return, they get a tax sale certificate. And that entitles them to generally a pretty high rate of interest, like 18%. And if that property, that family that owns that property, falls behind again with taxes, the tax certificate holder can pay that as well and keep paying it, keep
earning the 18%.
Yeah. And then if it's not redeemed within 2 years, the tax certificate holder can do tax foreclosure, which is something that's done in Superior Court, and it doesn't involve the sheriff, and it's fast. It's takes 2 months, and it's kind of scary because it'll just happen so fast. And one day the tax certificate holder is going to go to court, and the judge is going to say, okay, bang, you've got the deed to the property now.
It really is just like that. It's that frightening. If you're behind with your personal quarterly real estate taxes, or as Jeff pointed out, as well as sewer and water bills that are municipal liens, and you receive anything from an attorney, you should contact a lawyer right away. What Jeff said, 2 months, 3 months, something like that, you can lose your home and pretend it's 2 or 3 days. If you receive a summons and complaint in a tax sale foreclosure, you must speak to an attorney right away. What's interesting is right now in New Jersey, there's been recent case law, and I don't think, if you want, you can give me a call and I can give you the name of the cases, okay? I don't need to impress you like that. But there's cases that have spoken about what we can do in bankruptcy to help people save their homes, even if it's a little too late. So even if you've already lost your home to a tax sale, you can, as long as you're still there and it's within a certain time frame, call us. We can help you. But if you do receive a tax foreclosure pleading from a lawyer, talk to us right away. It's that alarming.
Yeah, it's a scary thing. There's nothing to stop that. As we talk about the evictions, the foreclosures, sheriff sales, there's nothing to stop a property tax sale. So you just have to be real careful about those. And since we're on that, the other big thing that wouldn't be covered by these moratoriums would be judgments. if you're sued for $10,000, $15,000 for something, there's nothing that would stop that lawsuit from going forward right now. And somebody could get a judgment against you. And if they do, they'd be able to execute on it by garnishing your wages, by taking money out of your bank account. It would be a lien against any real estate that you own. So like Eric has said frequently, if you get a complaint in the mail from some attorney about money, you'd be well advised to see a lawyer about it. You know, they've got a lawyer. You should have one too, or at least somebody to look at it and tell you what's going on. Don't just, you know, put it under some other papers on your desk and think that it's going to go away, because it won't.
No, that is really rewarding about what we do, Jeff, is that every day we have people call us, and some of them understand the extent of their problems. Others, as I spoke about a few minutes ago, are just so anxious about their problems. And you call us, and you can let all the bull crap leave and let all the good crap come in, because we really, at the end of the day, help people and make people feel better about their lives.
Yeah, and that's what we're set up to do. And it's rare that we would have somebody come in and they'd walk out without an increased peace of mind about their financial situation. They would understand better what's going on, and they have a plan to fix it.
Right.
We keep going.
We go for another couple minutes. The best 20 minutes on the internet can last 25.
We always, almost every week, I say, Eric, are you sure we're going to be able to talk long enough, you know, with these things? And then we never get through them or something. Well, like lawyers, we talk. Foreclosures, let's talk about those real quick. There's certain federally backed loans right now, and that would be Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, the VA, and the FHA, that have dates after which they can do foreclosure work. But again, the stimulus bill could change that. Those dates could be easily changed. So for Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, it's the 28th of February. For the VA and the FHA, it's the 31st of March. But again, that can be altered. And any other lender in New Jersey is free to do a foreclosure right now. Trouble is, they can't have a sheriff's sale. And the mortgage companies have generally told their attorneys just to stop the foreclosure process until things get back to normal and their sheriff's sales, because they don't want to pay their attorneys. I think, well, I mean, there's a number of reasons they would do that. It's a good thing to do, first of all, but they'd end up incurring legal fees by having their attorneys go back and get adjournment after adjournment after adjournment on a sheriff's sale that is forbidden right now. So,
however, we are seeing some summons and complaints for a number of reasons. It's being started in foreclosure. Again, if you receive a summons and complaint, if you're sued at all, you must meet with an attorney. Jeff said it right. The other side hired a lawyer. You ought to also.
Yeah. I think, Eric, that's pretty good for today. We didn't quite finish everything, and we can clean it up next week. We want to talk about the stimulus dollars that aren't even happening yet. It's just conjecture. You know, we're hoping to have a bill, or president is, by the middle of March, the Ides of March, in fact, that's the 15th. And we have to talk about utilities, but you know, we don't know what's going to happen with the stimulus stuff.
Not for sure.
It's just our best guess.
And if you have a question, not only can you call our office, but you could put it on our, if you're on the Facebook page now, just type in a question and we'll answer it on Facebook if you would like. If you think it's a question of general, it could apply generally and not just, you know, don't reveal your name and say something terrible. But if you have a general question, give us a call or just type it on Facebook and Jeff or I will answer it for you for sure.
Absolutely. So other than that, we'll see you next week, Thursday at 2 o'clock, same time, same place, and we'll finish up our today's program and do something else as well. And until then, stay safe and God bless.